Welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host. And I am joined this week by my co-host, Matt Freeman!
Why are you talking like that?
What?
Why would someone choose to portray themselves that way?
I don't know what you're talking about.
What is this choice? What is this acting choice that's happening?
Sorry, man.
Are you okay?
There's a bad thing in the throat there.
I thought you were just making a really strange decision.
No, who would do that? What kind of person would be in a movie where everyone else is acting normally and they're the only one doing a thing? What kind of that can't happen.
I mean, maybe we'll just have to talk about this concept at some point in time in the future.
I don't see how that could come up organically in our conversation.
Yeah, good point.
Hey, Matt, this week we're talking about 2015's Jupiter Ascending.
All right.
Yeah, now that the overly long joke is done, this is our seventh and final episode of our Deconstructing the Wachowski series, where we dive deep into the work of a certain director, or in this case, a couple of directors, and try to talk about, what they do, the stories they tell, how they tell them, and see if we can find, I don't know if we have like a conclusion to this whole thing. This is the first time we've done it, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll do our best to wrap up, I think, and hit on some of the things that we've noticed and observed over this journey.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things to me, we'll get into this, but how much they've changed as directors from way back in Bound to this movie here, and how much they've stayed the same. Because I think in some ways that they're still telling the same kind of stories that they were telling at the beginning, but bigger and flashier and with more lizard men. And then in some ways they're totally different in their objectives. So that's going to be a big part of this conversation about this final movie, Jupiter Ascending. The last movie they've come out with was almost 4 years ago now.
Yeah, they've been doing, I guess, TV, and we're not going to cover their newer work in TV.
Yeah, the Netflix show Sense8 we will not cover, just practically, we might circle back to it at some point and do like a mini segment where I talk about it. I am going to watch it. It's been on my list of things to watch for so long, and this whole marathon that we've done has really gotten me like back into my Wachowski shit, and so I really want to dive into this and watch it. But it's just not practical for the show. It would take forever, and we wanted to wrap this one up because it's like these take a while because there's so many movies and they're extended through all the other types of episodes we have to do. So we wanted to wrap it up. We didn't want this thing to hang out there for months and months and months, for our sake, because part of this is being able to compare and contrast the movies. And if they're 6 months between episodes, just can't do that.
Yeah, right. I think this way I'm still able to hold in my head pretty much all the movies that I've seen so far.
Right, yeah. So that's going to be the majority of this episode, is talking about Jupiter Ascending. We've also got a few segments at the end of the show that we're going to talk about. Mostly new stuff that's been going on in the world of film, but interesting, exciting stuff, I think.
Yeah, all right.
But let's just do it. Let's get into the main segment, and let's talk about Jupiter Ascending.
You've been taught that the birthplace of the human race is Earth, but it's not.
Do you know what this will do to people when they find out the truth?
I don't think that most people would want to know the truth.
I do.
Your planet was seeded by brass axe industries roughly 100,000 years ago.
It's one of the most powerful dynasties in the universe. There are 3 primary heirs. The oldest is Belem. He's the one that controls this planet and wants you dead.
I'm telling you, I'm nobody.
You are royalty.
So, Matt, this is going to be a tough one for us. A tough one in the ways that The Matrix Revolutions was a tough one. Because I don't think either of us liked this movie very much.
No. I had never seen this movie prior to last night. And I'm kind of glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're a little bit more lukewarm in the lukewarm direction. Because my reaction was just like entirely negative and frustrated and like everything is bad.
Yeah.
And then after talking to you today, I kind of like, it's not that I came around on it at all, frankly, but it was more like I was like, oh, like if I squint, I can see that it was kind of like there was some of it that was campy. And I'm like, maybe if I watch this movie again, knowing what it is, having seen it once and thinking like, okay, I'm sitting down for like a campy, silly thing that I can't expect to take seriously, then I might get some more enjoyment out of it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess we should say, spoiler warning, we are going to be talking about this movie in its entirety. There's really no way to do this without doing that. So there's your warning. And you want to read the summary for us, Matt? What is this movie about?
A young woman discovers her destiny as an heiress of intergalactic nobility and must fight to protect the inhabitants of Earth from an ancient and destructive industry.
Yeah, that is the movie, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So
It's
the concept is this family, and I guess the entire universe, but this family of three siblings is like the most powerful family in the universe. So they're really just the ones that we focus on. But they seed planets with people, and then harvest the people millions of years later, I guess. It was interesting because I think it felt like the movie got the timelines wrong, because it made it seem like they only seeded the Earth like a few 100,000 years ago, but then also said that they were responsible for taking out the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say that everything about the world building and setting in this movie is incoherent nonsense.
That's very true.
Like there's no defense. There's no defense at all. Basically, they just throw out like the mom, the woman who is the reincarnate, who Jupiter is the reincarnation of, was like 90,000 years old, but they had seeded, like you said, they had seeded the Earth like 65 million years ago, basically. So basically they've had this intergalactic civilization for millions and millions of years. None of it comes together. It's all just okay. This is basically the way I came to view it eventually, is I was like, oh, this is the imagination games that the Wachowskis played when they were kids.
Yeah.
Like almost nothing more than that, actually. Because it just reminded me so much of like, I literally, like when I was a kid, would like had a science fiction universe with aliens and like people who had wings so they could fly around. I was basically just cramming as much cool shit as possible into it. And I was like, oh, that's what this is. This is just that.
Yeah, that's what you're absolutely right. I mean, the biggest problem this movie has is the convoluted, messy script, and it's like they built this world and they stuffed this world with so many things. Like every idea they had, they stuffed into this world, and then they I described this to you before, but I'm trying to repeat it in a way that it makes sense because I confused myself when I said it before. But it's like you take a picture of the entire world, of the universe, and everything, all the rules and societies and everything in it, and they developed it. But then they took a picture of it and then like zoomed the picture in on one segment, and then that's the movie we got. So it's like you see that what you're seeing is part of some kind of bigger whole, but you never have the big picture. So you can't tie it all together. It doesn't, like, you get little glimpses of a more complicated, interesting, frankly, very inventive world. But because we never see it in its entirety, we never see the full scope of it. We're just kind of told that everything that's happening in the story is actually just one part of a larger world. But we don't ever see that. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. I'm just mostly just confused.
Yeah, I think you were telling me that the script was this behemoth and that it indicated a huge amount of thought had been put into into the world building. And I mean, it's funny because I would have just said this is just like lazy, messy, like trope based writing. Like, oh, we've got the Wolfman space cop and the other space cop man and the evil spaceman and the dragon attacking bad man and the gray aliens bad man, and then there's mercenaries, and then there's space bureaucracy. These are all hackneyed tropes that you see in literally every thing, every science fiction, like pretty much everything I just named is also in The Fifth Element.
Yeah,
like they're just tropes. So like you can tell me like, yeah, it's part of an elaborate. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, maybe.
Yeah, but I think one thing that the Wachowskis never do anything lazily. I don't think. Like yes, I agree that there is like this is an amalgamation type movie where, like, you're absolutely right. There's Fifth Element in here. A lot of the stuff with the family, the Abrasics, I think is their name. That's like straight out of Dune. Like even the way that even their planets that we visit them on, like the way that they're like, I really think Eddie Redmayne's voice, which we're going to get into later, and was the joke at the beginning of this thing, I think he's trying to do some kind of Dune-ish thing. I really do. And then of course, like the bureaucracy stuff is, there's a little bit of Brazil in there and a little bit of Hitchhiker's Guide. Like this movie seems like they wanted to take a lot of different things from, science fiction and bring it into this one universe that they've created, and then pepper it with all this stuff that they think is cool. That's not actually cool.
Yeah.
And this is the most fascinating thing in the world to me, because one of the things that I've been wrestling with all day in preparation for this show is the fact that yesterday I went and saw a movie called Alita: Battle Angel, and it was awful. I did not like it at all. Like there's a couple cool like action scenes in it, but the dialogue is like terrible. The story is convoluted and awful. And it's the same kind of trashy sci-fi nonsense that Jupiter Ascending is. And I was racking my brain and I was like, why did I hate Alita, but I was so fascinated by Jupiter Ascending? And that's kind of the way I feel about this movie as a whole. It's like, I agree that this is a messy, not very good movie, but I enjoy watching it. I do. Like I watched it again today and I had a good time, as bad as it was. And like, it is, I enjoyed it. And part of what I'm hoping this episode will do for me is like get to like verbalize why I think that is. What parts of this mixed in a movie that does not work, and I think we're going to get into exactly how it does not work, is things that I love.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to pull back on the throttle of me ragging on it for a second, like everything that I'm complaining about pretty much is the story, meaning the script. Like it looks great. Like the sci-fi settings are interesting to look at. The spaceships and the aliens are cool. They're well done. Everything that you would chalk up to direction is well done and competent and pretty. And it's just it's a situation where it seems like this is the one time in the whole repertoire of Wachowski movies where it's just like entirely style, with no underlying substance. Like even the Matrix sequels, they were trying to say some things with them, and I think that a combination of like the things that they were saying were not as like deep as they thought they were, and also maybe, I don't know. I re-listened to our Matrix episodes actually, and in both of those I talk about how like the movies actually worked better for me watching them as an adult, because I actually got what they were going for better, and I enjoyed that aspect. But I just don't. I think you agree with me. This movie isn't really going for anything.
Yeah, that's the weirdest part about it. Like, I think when you think about the Wachowskis, and I think our marathon has showed this, they are heady filmmakers, right? They have things on their mind, and their movies explore these things that they have on their mind. And I think we've tapped into that with just about every single one of these episodes. And we might not have hit the exact mark they were going for, but we still felt like watching the movie brought forth these ideas in us. I don't think this is that type of movie. I don't think this movie has a lot that it wants to talk about. I mean, there's this very surface level discussion of being happy with your life, right? Like that is one of the recurring beats throughout the story that Mila Kunis, as the character Jupiter, at the beginning of the movie has this repeating "I hate my life" mantra that as we're going through a day in the life of her, she says it in the morning that she hates her life, and we see this line repeated at the end of the movie when Eddie Redmayne's character reveals to her that yes, he was the one that killed his mother, who Mila Kunis is a recurrence of, which is weird. Like, if she's the exact same DNA sequence and the one brother was going to marry her, ew, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just DNA, Scott. It's not actually his mom.
Okay. It's just his mom in literally every way that matters. But sure. Anyway, he reveals that he did kill her, and she said, "I hate my life," and was begging me to do it. So like, I think that's actually a well like structured close of that setup, except like the movie, because of Redmayne's performance, which I actually think is wonderful, because of his performance and I think the editing in that scene, that moment doesn't land the way it should. And then the conclusion of the movie is her being happy with her life. Like she owns the earth now, but she goes home and like is doing the same thing she was always doing. She's still cleaning toilets. She's still waking up at 5 a.m, but she seems content with it. And that is the message of the movie. But that's not like be okay that you're poor is not like a really complex, like psychological exploration of humanity or anything, the type of stuff that we've seen them do in the past. So you're absolutely, this is a very long-winded way of saying, yes, you're right. This movie's not really about anything.
So can we talk about the idea that the Wachowskis have spoken about what they were trying to do with Jupiter as a character and how I just don't think that it worked at all?
Yeah, we can.
So the idea behind this character was they wanted to create a female protagonist who didn't use violence to solve her problems, but instead used intelligence and empathy.
Yeah. This idea of a science fiction female hero that is not just the badass kind of like a man archetype, right? Like Ripley is a great female hero, but she's like in Aliens, like the whole thing with Alien is that they wrote the character as asexual and just happened to be a woman. They wanted, I think, to play up maybe the feminine sides to make this kind of like a unique type of science fiction hero. And part of that was, yes, she's not going to fight. She's going to use empathy to solve her problems.
And you know what? That would have been awesome if they had made that movie. A character who uses intelligence and empathy to get out of dangerous situations. I love that. I love that kind of character. Yeah. That's not what we got.
No, it didn't work. And I think what they did is they had this goal in mind, and then they realized how hard that's going to be, because in this movie, this is an action movie. And so when you have your main character as someone who you have written a rule for yourself that says she's not going to do any of the action, we don't want her to be that type of hero. Okay. So how does she get out of the conflict?
Right. Or, I mean, basically you have to make a movie where the conflict isn't awesome looking combat.
Yeah.
Like Lady Jessica in Dune is this character.
Mm-hmm.
Like she uses violence like twice, or maybe literally once actually.
I think once. Yeah.
And, and like uses her intelligence, knowledge, skills,
right,
and understanding of humans. Right. And that works because that's not a movie that has a guy who surfs around a room and shoots everyone with his laser pistol. Ultimately the problem is that the Wolfman bodyguard character is basically like the driving force of the action in the movie, and makes all the decisions and knows all the information, and is sort of the protagonist if you look at it a certain way.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie doesn't spend enough time with him for that to really make sense.
And the thing is, I like him as a character. I think there's not enough there to hold up the entire movie. Like he would, like if he actually was the protagonist, I don't think he'd be good. But I like him for the role he has. But you're right. Like what happens in this movie is that Jupiter gets herself in a problem, and then he saves her. And that's happens like 5 times in the movie. There's like 5 times in the movie where she's in a pickle, and then he busts through the window. I think specifically like busting through the window is something that happens like multiple times on its own.
Yeah, and I think maybe 3 times she's falling, and he catches her at the last second. It became comical. Like the last time it happened, she's falling. I'm like, yep, he's gonna come in right now. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's kind of a weird thing, because like I see this, like you see the goal. They wanted to make this kind of a feminist, like here's a female sci-fi hero that you don't see very often. And that's true, but they also relegated her to being damseled over and over and over again. And I know the Wachowskis know better than that. It's just like I feel like they had this lofty goal and then they didn't know how to execute on it in the type of movie that they wanted to create. They wanted to have a movie where Channing Tatum rollerblades on gravity, and a movie where the conflict is solved by empathy and communication,
right?
And you just couldn't have both, and so they I don't know if they were forced to, or they made the decision to err on the side of action. And what that does is just leave Jupiter as a character who just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I like they did write this movie. I think you already said that, but they wrote this, so this is relevant to rag on the story in this particular way, because I'm actually even more annoyed knowing that they were like, we wanted a protagonist who was like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz or like Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Because I'm like, yeah, wow, that would have been awesome. Like a Wachowski movie with a female protagonist who's like Dorothy or like Alice. Like that's already kind of who Neo is for the first half of that movie until it does become an action movie. And they just, I feel like this is one of those cases where they were like, they wrote the first draft of the script and it didn't work, and neither of them wanted to start over completely. So they just like kind of grit their teeth. And I don't know, like that's my experience with writing a lot of the time is like very often you're like, I don't want to just throw this in the garbage. And so you try to make it work and it just never does work. And then I guess if you're a professional filmmaker with people relying on you, then you're just like, well, I guess this is the script we're going with. I mean, I don't know if they actually felt that way. For all I know, they thought this was a huge success and they accomplished exactly what they wanted. But it just kind of feels like majorly missed the mark with it. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like the thing about it that is that like I see the Jupiter they wanted in the final like deciding moment of the movie, right? Like there's a moment where she has her family has been captured. She's gone to confront Eddie Redmayne's character, who was just coming off an Academy Award win when this movie came out, by the way, which is just perfect. And she is basically confronted with this problem of you can save your family and signing the earth over to me, and we will not harvest it in your lifetime. Like he makes a promise to her, like, which I mean, again, we'll talk about that in a bit. But he makes a promise to her: we will not destroy the earth in your lifetime, so you will get to live a full life with your family on the earth, and you just have to sign it over to me. And she chooses no. Through the power of empathy, she cares about the billions of people on that planet that would eventually be destroyed 50, 100, however many years in the future, and chooses no. And then she's saved by the dog again, which is great. But that is the deciding, decisive, like climactic moment of the story, and that is when she uses that power of empathy to win there. And the problem is it's just not earned, because that's like the first moment she's made a choice. Like if the whole point of the movie was Jupiter is a person without agency and her journey through the movie is to get agency, I could see that, but I just don't. It doesn't seem like that's what they were going for. And if they were, I don't think it works. Yeah, it doesn't really. Like you said, that one moment doesn't redeem all of the prior moments where you didn't really see her growing toward this. You just saw her getting saved over and over. Right. And you know, not knowing enough information about the world. Like okay, so there's the empathy part. The intelligence part comes in because she doesn't understand the world because no one's explained it to her. She's a fish out of water, and so she's constantly making bad decisions based on a lack of information, and then having the dog have to tell her, no, it's, you know, they're trying to trick you, they're actually bad. And then she's like, oh, okay. Well, now I know that, so I'm going to behave that. But like, it's never really just like her figuring out a puzzle or seeing through someone's motivation. Like I thought the moment of her, like, you know, protagonist power kicking in was going to be when the guy was trying to marry her and she was going to like realize that it was a con, but no, she had to be saved by that one too. Right, yeah, and it's weird because there's this kind of recurring beat throughout the story, this idea of you know,
the world makes you untrustworthy, right? I think that's something she says about her mom. Her parents are in love, and then someone breaks down the door and tries to rob them, and her father gets shot, and that's how he dies. And then she says something to the effect of, after that moment, like, her mom just stopped believing in people and like went down a path, like shut everyone out, pushed everyone out of her life except for her sister. She was like I think they mentioned she was like a mathematician or something, and now lives in America and is a cleaning lady. And so there's this idea of Jupiter like going back and forth between being a very trustworthy people and just having that trust in people punished, right? Like that's like she trusts every single one of these siblings that she comes in contact with. But they seem nice, they seem like they're helping her out, and she trusts them, and that backfires on her. And there's something interesting there. Like, I can see it. It just doesn't work because like it's not established at the beginning of the movie whether her starting point is super trustworthy, like optimistic and willing to trust in people or not, right? So like if we had made that clear at the start, it seems like she's not, because it seems like the hates her life character has closed off. Like she's not in any relationships. We don't see her with any friends at all. It's just her family. It seems like all she does is work, and that's it. But then she just starts believing everything that every person that comes to her tells her. Like sometimes the good guys, but sometimes the bad guys. And
I mean, there's also the fact that like before she's even in this world, she agrees to go sell her eggs at the urging of her cousin.
Yeah.
And then her cousin is completely planning on defrauding her and spending all the money on televisions.
Yeah.
And it's like that's I'm sorry, but that's stupid. Like you're trying to make me think this character is intelligent, and she's getting manipulated by like everyone.
Right, right. And if the movie was to learn how to not be manipulated, I would like that too, but that's not what the movie is.
Yeah.
Like the movie, she takes agency over her life at the end. Yes. She decides to be content in her life. Yes. But that's not the same thing as I have learned, but like I have become universe smart. Like I'm become worldly, universally, right, where I understand enough about things to know who are the people I can trust and who can't. Like I don't feel like that's an actual thing. And yeah, it really hurts her character, and that really hurts the movie. And that it's like, you don't have her to cling to as like an emotional anchor through all this nonsense. Like, I mean, Star Wars is, I think, a pretty good example of a movie where you had a fish out of water character who was learning how the universe worked, who didn't know. And actually, I mean, Luke Skywalker is fairly passive in that movie too, throughout the beginning of it. He just kind of goes where people tell him to. But first of all, he has like a clear arc, and he also does like make decisive actions at different points in the movie. So like,
right.
Like I think Luke is a character that they were kind of going for, like a female version of Luke Skywalker. And it just didn't work.
No, nothing about Jupiter's character worked. Almost nothing about any character worked.
Yeah. And I like Mila Kunis. I think she's a good actor. She was not good in this. This performance was not very good.
No,
just kind of emotionally flat.
It was emotionally flat, and I think that I don't even really want to blame her, because there's just the scenes are so disconnected that there is no character of Jupiter underlying it. Yeah, and that's what we've been talking about up to this point. But like I was thinking about the scene where she just kind of like spontaneously comes on to Dogman and then like is like getting really close to him and being like, why is it that I always fall for Mr. Wrong? And it's like, what? None of this has been established. What? You fall for Mr. Wrong? This is new information. This wasn't like, shouldn't we have had a scene?
No, she said it. That was the establishing point, Matt.
Didn't we need a scene where like a guy doesn't return her call before this happens, and we understand that she makes nothing, just random.
I feel like you fix that by making it her boyfriend that wants to sell her egg and not her cousin, right? Like,
yeah, right.
If it's a no good shitty boyfriend, then at least we've established her history of relationships with men. The only male relationships we serve history with is her pining for a father she's never met, hating her uncle, and feeling pretty indifferent towards her cousin, who is clearly using her, and that's all we got. So there's not a lot to compare to when we're meeting where we're establishing this romantic relationship with dog guy.
Yeah, and the romantic relationship, she's like swooning for him, and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, he's Channing Tatum.
Yeah,
so I mean, like there's no complexity or like interest to this. It's just he's Channing Tatum.
Sure.
Yeah.
However, if we are going to say she's a passive protagonist, we do have to say that the one place she is active is getting that dick, because none of that would have happened without her pressing the issue. So, I mean, yes, in her story, she's not very active, but she's definitely active in trying to hook up with this dude.
Even though he's extremely resistant to it for the entire movie.
Right.
Before at the very end, seemingly grudgingly agreeing to like that. That's the funny thing is, his character is so just like stoic and badass.
Yeah.
That you're actually, I thought he did fine with the role.
Yeah.
Such as it is. Because you actually get that he is interested in her, but also doesn't feel that he's worthy, but he's just so stoic that it's just like, but this can't be the emotional heart of the movie, unless you emote a little bit.
Yeah.
So
and I guess that's a good way to switch to something that I wanted to discuss with you. Something positive about this movie. This is the least cool movie I've ever seen. Just from a coolness factor, and by cool I mean like the popular definition of what cool is, right? I'm not talking about like, oh, I think this is cool. I mean like what society as a whole considers cool. This movie is the exact opposite of that. And it's fascinating to me. And that's kind of why I love it, because it's just so super nerdy. Like, this was 2015. Nerddom had gone mainstream and still is mainstream, right? Like, comic book movies are all the rage. There's like nerd culture is more accepted in society in these last few years than it has been probably at any point in history. But this is like ultra nerdy. Like, this is like there's nothing cool about, like, Channing Tatum is a good actor. He's a really good looking dude, and he looks like such a dork in this movie. Like, he looks so like he's got the pointy ears and the bleached goatee. It looks so bad. It looks so dumb, and I love it. I love that it looks so stupid and so dumb.
Yeah. I like the scene where like the mercenaries are going to ambush him toward the beginning of the movie, and all of their technology is just so like all of their sci-fi tech just looks so strange and silly, and like that. These are some of the elements where I think I am gonna rewatch this someday, and it's just like that. The design decisions here are like, let's just make campy, wacky looking like sci-fi stuff that doesn't look like anything else. See, I can't actually say with any confidence that they were trying to make the movie campy and silly and wacky, because tonally it feels like they're trying to make a straight up action movie. But I feel like it will work a lot better if you watch it as if it's like, oh, they're being tongue in cheek about all this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think that they are trying to do that?
No, I think they were being very serious. I think it's just that the Wachowskis are not cool. and I mean that in the nicest and most amazing way possible. I think the Wachowskis have a very specific definition of what they think is like cool shit. And I think in 1999, it just so happens that the Wachowskis' definition of cool shit matched what the general society definition of cool shit was. And that's why The Matrix worked. And then everything from then on didn't. Because like, why did Zion not work for people? Because it was weird shit. It was just like the way people dressed was weird, and like it was just like, and that's the way their movies have gone since then. And that's just like, and that's kind of like, that's why I think I love this movie, because at the end of the day, this is the Wachowskis being themselves. Like this is every choice in this movie is a Wachowski saying, oh, this would be cool. Like the freaking gravity shoes. Like they spent so much time on those. Those were practical. They did all that practically. And it's just so dorky. Like it's just like I understand like the coolness, like why you would think that would look cool. But like seeing Channing Tatum like rollerblade on air just doesn't look cool. It just doesn't.
Or like maybe like 13-year-old cool or something. Like that's the thing is that I'm not even really trying to be insulting to anyone who liked the gravity boots. I'm more just saying like, yeah, I know what you mean. Like I would have thought the gravity boots were awesome when I was 13 because I would have been in a headspace where I was like imagining running around. I'd probably be like playing with my brother and we'd be like running around, jumping off couches and pretending to be gravity surfing. But like, and here, this is where I'm like, you know, being vulnerable. Like what's cool to me now is like the jacket that Kay wears in Blade Runner 2049. And you're like, well, why is that cool? I'm like, I don't know why it's cool. Right. It just is. Like that's, it's cool to me now as an adult.
Yeah.
Things are different now.
Well, and this is the contradiction that I'm speaking of right now, because I've just said all this stuff and I didn't mean any of that negatively. I think the fact that Channing Tatum is a pointy-eared, bleached beard, rollerblade wearing guy with a gun that when it fires kind of sounds like a puppy barking, which it does. You should go back and listen to that. It sounds a little bit like a dog barking. I think that the uncoolness, the extreme nerdiness of that is incredible. I love it. I love the spliced animals. I love the elephant pilot, the rat guy that like, and the movie doesn't like ever like explain this stuff to you. It's just like, that's a guy he's got a little elephant trunk on his face.
And he trumpets at one point.
Right. I love that like, the movie never tells you that Sean Bean is probably like a bee splice, but his name is Stinger and he surrounded himself with bees. So he probably is. And then you have to question, like, does his butt have a stinger in it? Like, I think it's just like there's this weird random shit that is so strange and so out there. And I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, it's funny after you pointed out that he's probably a bee splice, I realized his hair is, I mean, it's pretty much normal Sean Bean hair, but it is just like puffy, like bee fur. Yeah, no, that's the thing is the 13-year-old in me loves all of these things, but they don't come. This has actually been kind of like a pet peeve for me just this week. Like a lot of things have happened where I've been like watching things and been like, Jesus Christ, like you can't just have your whole movie be the setting that you made. You still have to do characters. You still have to do a plot, and like it's a fun zany setting, and like that's the absolute best thing you can say for the movie. And I think you agree is like the way it's visually portrayed is great. Like the action scenes are almost all really great and fun to watch. You don't care what's happening, but they're fun to watch.
Yeah.
You can follow what's happening, which is important when you have all this complicated stuff going on.
I actually disagree slightly with that, which is I don't want to be. I'm more positive than you are here, and I'm being negative. But
sure. Well, I think there were problems. Yeah, but I mean, you go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I think like the two action scenes I wanted to compare are the opening one, or not the opening one. Channing Tatum fighting the spaceships in Chicago, right? I thought that was a great sequence. I really enjoyed that sequence. I think it has many layers. It shifts to different things. Like it starts with him, skating around while being chased, and then eventually he gets into one of the ships and he's fighting. Like I think action scenes that go on for a while need like shifts like that to keep them interesting. And I thought that worked really well. But I thought the space action scene where he's trying to break up the wedding, I thought that was a mess. And I don't like. I don't know why. Like I think it's this thing that happened post Revenge of the Sith, where everyone just like collectively decided that space fights now have to have like 8,000 ships in them at the same time to like show how impressive and massive and scaled it is. And actually, this is a problem in like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy also. And Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and both of them. And I think there's a problem in a lot of space movies where I just yearn for the days of like the Millennium Falcon versus 4 TIE fighters. And like this is like really, really emotionally intense action sequence where it doesn't have to be hectic to the point of what's going on.
Yeah. Or the Enterprise versus one Warbird.
Right. Where it's mostly just like, you don't even really see them maneuver that much because we can't afford that. I just like, and the Wachowskis can shoot good action. They've proven they can shoot good action. I feel like they kind of got sucked up into the trend of space equals more. And that sequence just didn't work for me at all. Like I couldn't tell what was going on. One of the other things is that I think like we've talked about Star Wars a lot, and I think it's just fitting because this is very much a big space fantasy type thing. So one of the things Star Wars had going for it was the ships were so distinct. Like I wonder how big Star Wars would have been if like the TIE fighter and the X-Wing weren't just these like super distinct, unique looking things, because you could put pictures of the ships in this movie down in front of me right now, and I wouldn't be able to tell you whose was whose. I have no idea what any of the ships look like. The designs are not memorable, and that hurts when you have 1,000 things on screen flying around really fast, and they're fast cutting between them all, and you don't know what the ships look like. It just makes it even more confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you just used the word like they know how to shoot action, but they get sucked into the. So I'm gonna be a little bit meta for a second. So remember how in Ready Player One, all of the scenes that were live action felt like Steven Spielberg, and you kind of cared what was happening,
right?
And then all of the scenes that were in the virtual reality world were
bad.
Sometimes worked, and often were just very inert and bad. And especially the action in the virtual world, it definitely did not feel like Steven Spielberg action.
No,
and that's because he's not directing it,
right?
And that's the same thing that's happening here. I think you're right that first action scene is really good because I think a lot of it is practical. I don't know for a fact, but it just seems like a lot of it is practical. Toward the end of the movie, you have the giant spaceship fight. You have the part where they're fighting in this like collapsing, exploding, impossible science fiction setting where it's got to just all be green screen, and explosions and things that aren't really there happening. So it's like you're not really shooting action now. Now you're constructing action out of your CG world.
Yeah, and especially when he's fighting the lizard man, that is entirely CG.
Yeah, and that doesn't look good. That scene in particular, like it's actually kind of a cool fight because I enjoy the idea of like a man fighting like a flying dinosaur gargoyle. Like that's kind of a fun idea for a fight.
Yeah,
but like it's like muddy colors. It kind of like you can't really see what's happening. But so I guess my point with all of this, and I think this is a trend in filmmaking recently, and I think it's very apropos to talk about in a discussion about directors, is like directors, their skill set doesn't necessarily transfer into fully CGI sequences.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because having to work with the physical camera inflicts some discipline upon them.
Sure.
And when they don't have that, then they're just like, let's have 10 million ships, and then the camera will zoom through the cloud of ships and then rotate around and make a hairpin turn, and then you're like, well, no, that's bad.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Like you don't want to do that. I feel like I'm watching a movie. I don't feel like I'm in with the characters anymore when you do stuff like that, and they do that all the time, especially in space battles these days. I
think part of that is probably just the amount of lead up time that goes into like a full CG scene like this. Like the previs has to start like before filming has even started. Like it just takes so long to like build all the different pieces of these these CG action sequences to the point where, yeah, you're right, they're not directing them. The movie probably isn't even like finished. Like, you know how many changes go as you're shooting the movie? Like you realize that you wrote a scene and it just doesn't work, but you've already gone so far down the road of pre-visualization on this like big space battle that you have to work around that. Like that is staying the way it is. You have to, if you change the movie, you change it around that moment. And yeah, so they're not as involved in the creation of it. Like it's basically, they have a vision and they hand it off to, probably you're right, probably it's a second unit director working closely with the animation team. And maybe they come in afterwards and help with the edit and help with the cuts. But that's like, you've already shot the thing. Like you can save some stuff in the edit, but not everything. And it makes me, this is kind of getting ahead of ourselves because I think we're going to talk about this in the overall conversation, but it makes me long for them to just make a movie like Bound again. Just like a simple, just small movie where the thing that shines is their filmmaking, is how they cut, where they put the camera, how they use the story, and the lighting and the directing to convey the themes that they're talking about. I miss that Wachowski team.
Yeah. I agree. I think it does now that I've noticed this thing where it seems like the technology got in the way. I really think that's a big part of it. Because like the Matrix was made at a time when all of their effect shots were a lot more laborious, that they couldn't do a lot of the things. Like, just, I remember, from the special features of that movie, like just the scene where the helicopter crashes into the building, that's like part practical, part CGI, and it was this like huge ordeal at the time.
Right.
And like now they would just do that fully CGI and it would just look fine, and there wouldn't even be it'd be like, of course that's going to be a CGI shot. You think we're going to build a giant set and crash a giant helicopter into a thing and have a giant explosion? And that's when you can do whatever you want in your movie, then you just like lose all grounding.
Yeah.
And yeah, I basically just fully agree that maybe they just need to get out of their system.
Could be.
I don't know.
I mean, and maybe that's the movie Sense8 is. Maybe Sense8 is like, I know it's like a high concept sci-fi thing. Like, I think it's like 8 people like are connected across the world, which is pretty high concept, but it is not, doesn't seem like it has to be like spaceships, big 1,000 ship battle like thing. It is much more character focused. And so that's part of the reason I'm looking forward to watching that a lot.
Yeah. I'm actually way more interested in it now that we've had this conversation, because I'm like, oh, that you're right. That is definitely going to be better than this was, and also plays to their strengths in a way that I'm excited about.
Yeah. All right, Matt, we got to do it.
Uh-huh.
We got to talk about the Redmayne voice.
All right.
So Eddie Redmayne is the only good performance in this movie, in my opinion. And that's ridiculous to say because I think his performance is terrible. But it's terrible in the exact way it needs to be.
Right.
And what I want to talk about is like the idea that everyone says Eddie Redmayne is the only one that understands what type of movie he's in, or he's the only one that sees the movie for what it is, which is campy nonsense, and is playing into that as much as possible by having this like, oh, my name is Eddie Redmayne, and it's awful in the best way. And this got me thinking, because I was thinking about this idea of he's the only one in the movie that knows what movie he's in. And I don't understand how a thing like that happens. Because movies are filmed over weeks, and you're between every scene you're talking to the director, and the other actors are seeing your performance. And I just don't understand how, like, I that's a statement that people say a lot. Like, it's something we use, like, when you, like, one person is doing a performance that is, like, so drastically different from everyone in the movie, you say that, like, oh, he's the only one that understands the movie he's in. And it's like, but how, like, was there a conversation around this? Did he just show up on set and start doing it, and then they were just like, oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, you're the one with the Academy Award. Yeah. See, that's the thing is I feel like they might have actually like loved it. I mean, like, yes, that's exactly what we want. We want just this completely campy, like way over the top, hammy villain, like big, memorable. They probably use the word memorable, even though he's not actually villain. Like, I mean, that's true. You kind of, in fact, now that I think about it, the Wachowskis always have villains who have weird voices.
Yeah, they do.
Because they can lean on Hugo Weaving to provide that usually.
Right. Yeah, but it's just like, don't you then say, okay, this is what we want. Now other actors, try to do, you don't do the same thing. Obviously it wouldn't work if it's the same thing, but maybe play up your performance a little bit more. Like Mila Kunis, maybe just like make it, just a little more, right? Like Channing Tatum, you're a dog man.
Yeah.
To do that a little bit more.
Yeah. Dogs are excitable creatures, actually.
They're not, yeah. That's the weirdest thing about him is he's like this dog without a pack, so he's like this depressed dog. And I was like, why'd you make it a dog then? If he's not going to really act like is it just so you could do the pointy ears? I mean, did they make him a dog literally just because they were going for Alice in Wonderland and they wanted him to be a Toto? Is that the only reason?
I think that may have been it. I mean, that was mentioned in the Wikipedia article, this idea that that Dorothy has Toto, who's her helper, who barks at the villains and helps her. But the actual truth of that movie is that is that Toto is a tiny dog who's completely ineffectual, and it's actually Dorothy who has to protect the tiny dog. That's not what's happening in this movie. In this movie, the tiny dog is saving her from everybody all the time, and he's a complete ultimate badass.
Yeah, but his gun barks.
His gun barks.
There you go.
Yeah. But he's the ultimate badass. I like the part when he's standing in the room shooting through the wall without aiming. And yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I think we're almost at the end here. And I think I've been more down on this movie than I thought I was, because like my thing is like I can't disagree with anything you say. Like you're right. You have been 100% right in every opinion you've shared about this movie. And I still like this stupid movie. But here's something that I actually have a lot of problems with from the Wachowskis as filmmakers. And that's the ending of this movie. Because the end of this movie is she has killed Eddie Redmayne's character and retained control of the Earth. She is still the queen, I guess, which we're not really... The movie doesn't really do a good job of making us understand the governmental structures. So I really don't know like what her... Like she's not like queen of the universe. She's just like part of a bureaucratic system that gives her power and control. Like she's the aristocracy class that gives her control over just one planet.
I thought it was multiple planets, but I have no idea.
Yeah. So she wins that. So she has her planet now. So since she is in charge of the planet, no one will harvest the planet. Earth is saved. Yay. She goes home. She, like we said, she's content with her life again. She's happy. She's happy with her family, who finally like pay attention to her and give her the telescope she wants, which, I mean, great gesture. But once you've like been in space, I feel like telescope is like, especially since you're dating a space wolf dog, who can probably just fly you into space anytime you want.
Right.
But the point is, she's content with her life. She's content with her family. She's happy with her space dog. And that's the end of the movie. And this is a little weird to me, because if we look through the Wachowskis' filmography, one of the things that they've really always been talking about is this idea of revolution, of escaping the system and tearing the system down and asserting yourself in the ruins of that system, right? I mean, that was in Bound. Like it's a much smaller and localized version of that, but those characters are taking control of their lives again and freeing themselves from the oppressive boyfriend, and going on their own and being happy. I mean, that is the Matrix trilogy. Is that like that's what the movie is about? Speed Racer, I mean, he's still kind of like trying to tear down the old way of doing racing and bringing it back to like the pure form,
right,
by like just pure racing. V for Vendetta is very much a revolution movie.
Cloud Atlas definitely.
Yeah, Cloud Atlas definitely. And so this movie, like, she definitely bucks the system and escapes from the system, but she doesn't tear the system down. The movie ends with her just saying, okay, this planet's safe, but we've been told again and again throughout the movie that Earth is just one small cog in a giant machine that is going to keep turning. So even if they've lost Earth, and that might like throw the economy of the universe into disarray, there's still two siblings left in this family. We see a planet that has just been harvested at the beginning of the movie, so we know that this happens and probably happens fairly regularly. And she's just okay. She doesn't destroy that system. She doesn't take it down. She just like and the same thing with. I mean, and on a micro level, the same thing with her lot in life. Like she's this person that is stuck cleaning and stuck with her living with her family, and she's cleaning and she's miserable. And at the end of the movie, it is not her escaping from that oppressive system. It is her learning to happily exist within it. And that is so different from what they do. And I was just like, I was so surprised when I looked at it from that angle. I was like, that's a really big change for them as directors and storytellers.
So they listed some of their inspirations again as The Wizard of Oz and also the Odyssey, which are both movies that have the structure of, character leaves and then ultimately returns home, where they have undergone profound personal change, but their home is actually not.
Right.
In Dorothy's case, it's like she probably just dreamed the whole thing. In Odysseus' case, it's he returns home and has to fight the suitors and whatever, but then it's fine. The point is, I think that they were just like, they shackled themselves to this certain story structure they wanted to work within, even though it didn't work with the rest of the story elements that they plugged into it. Yeah. So like one thing that you could do that would make this work better for me personally would be, in the climax, her decision basically has to be, she has to sacrifice her queendom to save the Earth. And she has to be like, she basically maybe like puts control of Earth's protectorship in the hands of someone else, some third party. And then she is sent back to Earth, and she just becomes a nobody again. But the difference now is that she has this confidence and this sense of what she's done and pride. And so she can be proud of who she is, even though her life is pretty much the same. And then, you know, maybe we end the movie seeing her like, you know, get a better job or something minor, but a token of her like having changed internally and now having some confidence in herself. But instead what we get is she's still the galactic queen with untold wealth and resources. And she just wants to like kind of hang out with her boyfriend and continue cleaning toilets. And it's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this is just not what a human would do. It's a nonsense story choice that only works if you don't think about it at all.
Yeah. Well, and it settles weird for me in a world in which we've established this terrible, terrible practice of using entire planets' populations just for magic, make you immortal juice. And we haven't torn that system down. Like, at least in The Wizard of Oz, like, she kills the Wicked Witch and removes Oz from his bullshit like power hold over the city, right? Like, so she does go home, and it could have all been a dream, but the place she leaves behind is markedly improved by her actions. And yes, you could argue in this movie that happens too. She kills Eddie Redmayne's character and destroys the refinery on Jupiter accidentally. Actually, she doesn't do it. The dog does it. But the other two siblings are still out there. They're still in power. They still themselves own planets as part of their inheritance that they will use to do bad things, presumably. That's one of the things I don't think the movie does a good job of. And this is what I mean, like the zoomed in picture. I don't have a good picture of the governmental structure in the system. Does her taking power mean that now that she's back, because they're her children, quote unquote, they don't own anything anymore? That she has taken control of every single thing that family owns now?
I don't know, because the implication was that she was going to take back possession of Earth,
right? At
the very least, but why Earth and not not just everything? Yeah, and also, all we needed was a scene where she says, "I hereby decree that the harvesting of planets is now illegal."
Right.
And then you see the two sibling characters be like, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
And then everyone else cheers. That would have taken 10 seconds.
It's so weird because like those two characters just disappear from the movie. Like in any other kind of movie, they would come back in the end in some way, because we have this, like, she just talks with the sister of the three. And they just have a conversation, and she basically exposits some information about how the world works to her, and then says like she had a bad relationship with her mother, and she hopes that through Mila Kunis she can have a good relationship again. And then the wolf comes to rescue her, and she's just gone. She leaves the movie, never to return again. And then the same thing happens with the brother that she's going to marry. She's like 2 seconds away from marrying him. He was definitely going to kill her as soon as they got married. And then dog comes and saves her, and then he's just gone again. We don't see him like arrested. Like, the law enforcement in this universe is very confusing to me.
Yeah, right. I don't even know where to start on that. I mean, it's basically like the private armies of these nobles versus kind of this whatever it is, the government. But shouldn't they be the government if they're the nobility? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, to me it seemed like I think it's supposed to be Dune-ish, right? Where they're like houses, and they're not actually the main governmental unit. They are just blessed by the government to own certain planets, and they get their wealth and immortality from that ownership. But if that is the case, we have to circle around to the fact that, again, she has willingly decided to let the system continue instead of challenging it, and is just happy being at home. And it just feels weird to me. Like, it feels weird as a character choice from a person who was so deeply disturbed by this activity that it would like horrified her when she first learned that was going on. Because it is objectively horrifying to use an entire planet's population, millions of years of evolution and lives as just like juice to make me not have as many wrinkles.
There's just too much going on. So here's just another random thing where you just have to stare at it in awe for its incoherence with the rest of the movie and just like as a Wachowski theme. So she's royalty, and he keeps calling her Your Majesty, and she like really likes that. And then she goes to the bee farm of the bee guy, Sean Bean, who very disappointingly doesn't die in this movie. and Sean Bean is like, oh, Your Majesty. And then later he explains like how royalty is just a very special, magical thing, and royalty is, and like he takes it very seriously that she is royalty. It really means something to him. Yeah. It's like a very earnest Sean Bean performance. The bees recognize royalty. Okay, all she is this evil, she has the same genetic code as this evil woman who lived a long time ago. No,
but she decided not to be evil at the very end of her life, Matt. So she's okay.
But like my point is that royal, like why is the movie holding up royalty as a good thing? Royalty
yes.
is a terrible concept, both in real life and in the world of the movie. It's a concept that's purely used to justify the power structure that is killing billions of people on an ongoing basis. And yet we have this earnest scene where Sean Bean is like, you are a royal. You are very special. Yeah. And it's like, that's bad.
And the whole recurring beat with her and Channing Tatum where she's like, I only like when you call me Your Majesty. Uh-huh. And it is like, for the movie to end with that, with him saying Your Majesty, and she's going, ooh, I like that. And I was like, Your Majesty, billions of people are dying a few light years away from here. They're still doing the harvesting thing. Maybe Your Majesty wants to go address that problem? No, I want to rollerblade on this guy.
Yeah.
Happy ending. Yeah, right. I mean, it's like and like from a micro level of her being content in her life, I think that's a good message. I mean, like, not everyone gets to be a intergalactic princess, and we see through the queen that she's a reincarnation of. She was just as miserable in her life as Mila Kunis is. So this understanding of, sometimes life deals you shitty cards, and the way you get through it is just by finding a way to be content in what you're given, which can be shitty. But it is, to me, so radically different from the type of themes that they've explored in the past. It is so radically different from everything that they've done and the importance of the stories they've told. And I wonder if they've just gotten to a point in their career, like, it's hard for me not to put like a meta spin on this, to just be like, they just got tired of fucking fighting against the system. They just got like tired of it. And like the last 3 movies that they made have not done very well, were critically panned, did not make a lot of money. And they just like, it's just like, fuck, like, it's just like, I'm tired of it. I'm exhausted. Like, I'm tired of the rebellion. And I mean, maybe that's also a symbol of them getting older. I think by 2015, they had both transitioned or were in the process of transitioning. So they had found themselves as human beings, and finally gotten to express themselves in the way they were. And maybe that's just like what happens, like you get older, and you start looking at life differently. And instead of tearing down and bucking the system, you're suddenly much more interested in finding happiness in where you are.
Yeah. Just letting the harvest go on elsewhere. You can't do anything about it anyway.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
Just
like I've tried to stop the harvest. I've stopped it here in my world. But I can't stop it anywhere else.
So. I'm absolutely certain that's not the intended reading, but I adore that. I adore that as the reading of what's happening in this movie.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We just talked about this idea that she's royalty, and it just kind of made me click that almost all their movies have a chosen one concept.
Yep.
Neo is the chosen one that persists for 3 movies. All of the important characters in Cloud Atlas have like the mark that designates them as like this important soul that's traveling through time. And
Speed Racer is the god of racing, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, at least he wasn't like designated by like a literal prophet as being the god of racing, but he clearly is.
Yeah.
I think the only of their movies that I can think of off the top of my head that doesn't have a clear like near Messiah like level chosen one is Bound. I just think it's really interesting that they have this idea of, you know, we've talked about how important the idea of identity is to them, and people whose inner identity as being like some powerful being is not reflected by their station in life.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense, but it's funny to me that I love the theme of you need to figure out what is within you and then find a way to express that, and maybe you'll have to fight the system to do that because the system won't accept you for how you are. I don't love the theme of because you're the chosen one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's inherently exclusionary, right? And I mean, like one of the things we've seen in the last few years is kind of a tearing down of this chosen one mythology, where it's movies in this genre and in these type of movies are much more interested in the idea of anyone is capable of doing this, not just the chosen one. I mean, that was Last Jedi's whole thing, right? And that's what pissed people off so much. Well, part of what pissed people off so much. That movie I was talking about a few weeks ago, The Kid Who Would Be King, is the same way. It's kind of taking the authority, like the Arthur legend, the chosen kid who pulls the sword out of the stone, and deconstructing it to anyone can be a hero. Anyone can stand up and fight, and that kind of thing. And yeah, I wonder where the Wachowskis' love of that archetype exists in a world that has kind of said, I think we're kind of done with that now. And I don't know. And this is one of the things where I'm curious if Sense8 deals with that at all. Because again, just by the synopsis, that seems like there's 8 chosen ones and they're linked together for a very specific reason. And we're going to find out why through the course of that show. And maybe it will be a much more, much different chosen one type of thing. I don't know, but you're right. That is their thing for sure.
Yeah. I guess I don't have a whole lot to add there other than, it's actually kind of amusing to me that didn't really pop out to me until this movie, and I guess it's because we're reflecting back over all their movies explicitly, and I'm thinking like, wow, yeah, all of their protagonists are this specific archetype, and I don't think I like that. I think it works with Neo for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it works with Neo, and this again is our reading of the second movie that might not be correct, but that it is specifically dismantling that whole mythos. But then the third movie kind of contradicts it. But I don't want to get back into that whole conversation again. But yeah, I think that's why it works there. And I mean, Speed Racer is probably the least close to that because he's just like really good at racing, and it's like it works because he's just super passionate. But like the reason he's so good at it is because it's his whole life. And that's the kind of skill based thing I can get behind.
I agree. I think I'm going to revise my statement. I don't think Speed Racer is a chosen one at all. I think he's the opposite. I think he's a person who has decided what he wants to be in life, and he puts all of his energy into that. Yeah. And it's not because the spirit of the last Speed Racer passed into him. It's because that's just who he is, and he's expressing himself, and that's something I can get behind. In fact, that's probably one of my favorite things about that movie is the way his character is portrayed and the decisions his character makes.
Yeah, he just fucking loves it. Like he just loves racing, and he loves it more than anything. Yeah, that's why that movie works as well as it does. I agree. Yeah. So we're coming here on the end, and we're talking about the Wachowskis. It's been 7 movies. I had this really weird thing that happened to me during the course of this thing, Matt, which is in my head before we started this thing, I thought Wachowskis, and I thought for some reason Rage Against the Machine is inexorably linked to them in my head. And I just think that's because like those songs were such a big part of The Matrix. And the idea of Rage Against the Machine, the things that they discussed as a band were very similar to the things that Matrix, and I just had the Wachowskis and The Matrix linked together. And by the end of this, like, I don't see them that way anymore. And it's not that like I'm taking away the Matrix from them, because they made the Matrix and it is one of the greatest movies of all time. It is excellent. It holds up just as much as it should. I think that's probably my favorite conversation we've had out of all of these, is talking about that movie, because I loved it so much still. But they are much more Jupiter Ascending than they are the Matrix to me. and I don't mean that as a bad thing. It sounds like I do, but every single one of their movies after The Matrix, and maybe V for Vendetta, and again, I don't think that counts because they didn't direct it, they just wrote that one. Those movies failed. Like every one of them. Cloud Atlas didn't make money. Speed Racer didn't make money. This didn't make money. The Matrix movie, the Matrix sequels made pretty good money because just by being The Matrix, but I think they were financially disappointing compared to the success of the first one. But they're all movies that people have gone back to appreciate more after. The Speed Racer is a movie that people found years later and fell in love with, and it now has achieved cult status. Cloud Atlas is a movie that a lot of critics liked, but again, a lot didn't, and I think people have grown to appreciate that one more. Jupiter Ascending, I don't know if people are going to have a revisionary cult status thing on this movie. I know some people do. Like when I see people on film Twitter talk about Jupiter Ascending fairly often, and it's usually positive, because I don't think the people that didn't like this movie are thinking about it, or certainly talking about it for an hour like we did. But I just think like these like goofy, challenging, uncool, silly type of movies that you can tell there's a lot of passion in them, even if they don't work, is more the Wachowskis to me now than trench coats and Rage Against the Machine and sunglasses, which is what were the things that would pop into my head when I thought about them before we did this thing.
Yeah. You know, when I think about the sci-fi aesthetic that you see in Cloud Atlas in the future sections, and that you also see in these movies, I'm not going to say it's similar, because it's not similar in the way that you can pick out specific elements, but it's similar in the way that, I don't know, it's similar in the way that you look at Star Wars and you're like, yeah, that's Star Wars. You know, like there's an aesthetic there. The Star Wars aesthetic is sci-fi, but everything's crummy and dirty and breaking down. The Star Trek aesthetic is sci-fi, but everything is sleek and beige and unitards and touchscreen consoles. The aesthetic for the Wachowskis, like their whole sci-fi sensibility seems to be just like, let's make it look different. Let's make it look different from everything else. Let's make it look weird. Let's have the gun be a thing where you're like, is that a gun? Or what is that in his hand? Let's have let's instead of a rocket pack, let's have rocket boots. Everything's got to be different. And when they put him in the jail cell, it's a hole in the floor and it seals up over his head. Like everything, and it's to the extent where you're just like, I don't understand. Nothing is coherent or of a piece or makes sense visually. And I think that all feeds into what you were saying about it being uncool. Yeah, because it's just like, it ends up just feeling random.
But I love it. I love the randomness. That's the thing I get to. Like, I like, if you told me, hey, Scott, Jupiter Ascending 2 out tomorrow, I would fucking be there for the first showing and I would sit down and be thrilled to watch it. That's the thing about, like, yes, they have trouble in some of their storytelling. Yes, they have trouble. Like, their writing can be a little convoluted at times. But I just like, there's something about their aesthetic to me. There's something about the way they see the world and how the way they see the world is translated into their directorial decisions in the worlds that they build. Will never not be fascinating to me. And at the end of the day, I think that's the difference between Jupiter Ascending and Alita Battle Angel for me, is that I want to live in the world that the Wachowskis see in their heads. Like, it fascinates me, and and my voice is dying. I'm so passionate, my voice is going away. And Alita felt like to me like a cold and different, silly but not in a good way, like eye rolly kind of way world. Whereas this is just like, I want to be friends with these people that like made a lizard man fight a dog man because they thought it'd be cool.
Yeah. It's I don't know if I feel exactly the same way, but I think I know what you mean. That there's it's not sterile. Like,
right.
Okay, I haven't seen Battle Angel yet, and I don't know if I will. But like from the trailers, the art aesthetic looks very sterile, and that's a word that I could use for a lot of sci-fi. Like a lot of sci-fi just doesn't have anything that feels like heart in the visual aesthetic. And while I did just kind of rip on the art for a bit, it like they're definitely putting attention into it. Like they definitely care. I just don't think I like it.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Yeah, no, yeah. I know what you mean about. I think I know what you mean about just like at least there's personality there.
Yeah. And I will always take personality. Always. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Plus, Alita, like all the heads look goofy as fuck.
Yeah,
that movie. People like it apparently, so I think I'm going to be in the minority of this movie. But
yeah, I wonder if it's like does it stop being distracting eventually?
Nope.
Because I was watching the trailer. I was just watching the trailer, and like your eyes automatically are like tractor beams sucked onto Alita's face every time she's in the frame and it's purely your hominid brain throwing you a signal of like, what the hell is that?
Right. It's
Watch out.
Yeah, that's not right. It shouldn't be that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you never get used to that. And like they basically, it seems like they made a decision that like, because there's a bunch of other robots with faces too, and none of them have the big eye thing, but there are a lot of like the whole robot is entirely android except for the face, which is human looking. And it just looks goofy as fuck. Like it just like there's a guy who's like has a little tiny robot body and a big head, and like there's supposed to be a big emotional scene with this guy, and I can't take it seriously because it's a giant head on top of a little robot body, and it's just yeah.
Great.
But I kind of respect the fact that they like maybe realized they couldn't make it look good, so they just decided to make it look crazy. I kind of respect that.
Yeah.
The thing that doesn't work with Alita, and this is not an Alita review, so there's a romance subplot, and it's dreadful. It's worse than the one in Jupiter Ascending. It's awful. Every time the movie cuts away from a cool action scene where Alita's doing something badass to hanging out with this boy that has no charisma at all, I wanted to leave the theater. And my wife just said, took a selective nap. She said, "This sucks. I'm going to bed," and she slept in the theater.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, so that's a great way to end the Wachowskis marathon by talking about Robert Rodriguez's Alita Battle Angel. But yeah, I mean, I think that's why I like this movie. Like their aesthetic is just something that works on me, and that feels like weird. And I think we've done a sufficient job explaining why over the course of these 7 episodes, where it's not just like, well, I like them because I like them. It's more than that. But a lot of times it just comes down to taste. And I love the Wachowskis. I want to watch everything that they do. I hope they do more movies. I hope they do small projects in the future. You know, don't have the pressure of a $175 million budget. Which, I mean, like, okay, why would you spend that much money on a movie like this? Like, it's never going to make that much money. Like, it's never going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's I think we had similar comments about Cloud Atlas, like this idea that they seem to be at a point in their career where it's like you take a person who's written like 3 really nice piano sonatas in their lives, and then you're like, all right, good job. Here's infinite resources, and then they're like, great, I'm going to make a full orchestra symphony. It's going to be 17 hours long. It's going to be an epic. There's going to be, I'm also going to write like ballet. There's going to be ballet in it, even though I've never done that before. And like that is to me what Cloud Atlas was, and like it was amazing that it succeeded as much as it did. But it's like they're saying, what if we like I'm bored of storytelling using the rules of narrative. I want to just be completely insane and off the wall with this.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that has problems, and it doesn't doesn't always work super well, and they're talented enough that they can kind of make it work. I don't think it worked in this movie. I think they were trying to do a creative thing with the narrative structure by basing it on these other types of stories, and they just mashed together too many elements, and it just completely faltered. So again, yes, I agree. To return to what you said earlier, I want to see them make kind of more standard-ish narratives. I don't mean like you can't be creative and have interesting twists and interesting story elements. I would never say that. I just mean like fewer story elements.
Yeah.
Keep it tight. Keep it on like a handful of characters maybe.
And if you're going to go off the wall, go fully off the wall. Like Cloud Atlas is better than Jupiter Ascending because Jupiter Ascending is like dipping its toes into being a non-standard story while still trying to be a standard story, which is as Cloud Atlas is just literally being whatever the fuck they want. And if they're gonna make those, I would rather see that than this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so that is the Wachowskis. We are done with that marathon. I loved doing this. I feel like I learned so much about filmmaking on top of learning about these filmmakers. So I cannot wait to keep doing these. This is like when we envisioned doing this across episodes, this is exactly what I wanted it to be. So it's like our goal fulfilled, and I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, me too. This is 100% success in my mind.
Yeah. So I think we're going to do M. Night Shyamalan next. I don't think we've 100% decided on that, but we're probably going to take a little bit of a break from the marathon stuff because we've had other topics we've wanted to talk about, but we really feel like we needed to finish this. So we were prioritizing finishing this up. So we'll probably take a month off or so before we jump into another marathon. But it was fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Doof. All right, Matt. Let's talk about the Oscars.
Okay. I mean, I might just like kind of recline for a second because I think this is maybe the first year I haven't even watched any part of them. I just they've alienated me too much.
Well,
at this point.
They're not out yet.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that. And I'm not going to watch them. So.
Yeah, they come out not this Sunday, but next Sunday. So the big thing in the news that I wanted to talk to you about, though, and I think we've touched on this before, because I think they announced earlier in the years that they had this idea that they were not going to present all the awards live during the broadcast. What the Academy has been trying to do over this past year is get the broadcast down to 3 hours. They've decided that the reason why the ratings for the Oscars are not doing well and have steadily declined over these few years is because it's too long, so people won't watch it. That's wrong. One of the reasons why the ratings are steadily declining is because people don't watch TV as much anymore. They don't, like, that's just a fact of life, is that people do not watch network TV as much. Ratings across the board are down. And the other thing is they just are becoming an increasingly niche thing. I don't think any human being is going to look and say, oh, it's not 3.5 hours. It's only 3 hours. Okay, I'll watch it now. But part of this whole thing, part of this whole effort to get it down is they've picked 4 awards that they're not going to broadcast live at the ceremony. They're going to broadcast them, or they're going to give the awards out, but during the commercial breaks, and then they will do an edited version of the announcement during the broadcast for people to listen to. And these awards, Matt, are short live action film, cinematography, editing, and hair and makeup.
Uh-huh.
And that surprised a lot of people, I think, because in cinema, cinematography is it's pretty important to the whole thing. Editing is pretty important. And so a lot of filmmakers were really pissed off about this. And the Academy came out with a statement, like after basically a bunch of actors and filmmakers signed this petition that says, Academy, don't do this. So they came together and signed this petition, and the Academy came out with a statement today, actually, that was like, no, it's social media and bad reporting's fault that you don't understand what we're doing here. We're not showing the awards. We're just not doing them live, and we're recording them after the fact. And it doesn't mean we're devaluing those awards, because we're going to do a rotation. So next year we're going to do different awards. It won't be the same ones. And I'm like, I get that they think that means they're not devaluing the awards, but like my response question to that would be, okay, is Best Picture going to be one of the ones that you're going to rotate into the not doing it live? Oh, no? Well, why not then? Oh, is it because it's too important of an award? Oh, so what you're saying is there are some awards that are less important in your mind, and you are putting them in this rotation because you think they're less important, and therefore you are devaluing the significance of the award.
Right. I mean, they know that everyone wants to see the Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Picture.
Right.
They're never going to rotate those out, and if they do, it's because they don't understand what their show is for.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing is most people who watch it don't know that editing is important and may not know what cinematography is. So from the perspective of the average viewer, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I at this point, I'm like, look, if you want to make it shorter, then maybe you don't need to broadcast it live at all. Maybe you should do the whole thing and then edit like an hour and a half version of the Oscars.
Or maybe take out all the dumb jokes and shit you do. Like where they do the connecting to the common man, where they go into a theater and like, look, we're famous people and you're watching a movie that I'm in.
Yeah, or take out some of the, I mean, okay, this is going to be controversial, but like, does having the songs performed live, like, isn't that the time when everybody goes to get a drink of water?
Yeah.
That's just time filler.
They're actually
to me, anyway.
already doing that, hilariously.
Okay,
but
great.
In true Academy form, they're only doing that with some of the songs, which again is saying that some of the nominees are not as important as the other ones, which is like, I just like doing it this way, doing it piecemeal. Yes, you are telling the winner of this award that you don't matter as much. It doesn't matter if you're live because we don't care enough. And for it to be like, in my mind, when they announced this, I thought they were going to do like foreign language film, which they shouldn't do, but, I guess that makes sense. An American award show that has one foreign language category, or like short documentary feature, like short live action feature kind of makes sense to me. But cinematography and editing, I mean, these are cornerstones of the process. And yes, you're right. I think the average viewer doesn't understand what cinematography means, but this is an opportunity to educate people too, to show people like you don't have to just give the award. You can tell people what it means. What does this award mean that we're giving out to people? And they just don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, okay, I'm just going to go on a complete tangent here. Like, okay, now that I am fully absorbed into the mid 21st century media sphere, I can't stand the like overproduced, like, okay, let's have, Joaquin Phoenix and Catherine Zeta-Jones walk up, take 15 seconds to walk up to the microphone with applause. Then they each say some very stilted, prepared remarks about the award category,
or tell a terrible joke as they read a teleprompter. Yeah,
tell a terrible joke and like you see them like cringe and like hope that just no one remembers this, and then we do like the building up the tension artificially as we open the envelope slowly, and like all of that. I can't stand anymore. I think I could stand it back when I was trained by television on like how entertainment was supposed to be.
Like when there were commercial breaks and stuff?
When there were commercial breaks and when there were when everything that I saw was like super overproduced. Now I understand that you can just have things that still have their own weight to them that aren't ridiculously like overdone like that. Am I hitting the right concept with the word overproduced? Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. And I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, part of this whole, there's always going to be pageantry here. It's an award show. And I think pageantry is okay. I think you just have to I think the Academy just needs to recognize that in the 21st century of, a 400% increase in the number of scripted shows that are being shown, and like the huge number of streaming platforms we have, like you're just not gonna get growth in ratings anymore. It's not gonna happen. Like you might succeed in getting this award show below 3 hours this year. And you did it by pissing off a lot of the people that are your guaranteed viewers. Like the people that are mad about this are the people that always watch the Oscars 100% for sure. And maybe you bring in some other viewers, maybe. But like, the funny thing is the pageantry is the part that the average viewer comes for, right? Like, I agree that you don't like the overproduced nature of like the people making jokes on stage, but like, I think the average viewer of the Academy Awards actually likes that stuff because they get to see the actors, the famous people they care about. And that's funny. It's fun for them. Like, here's the famous people on stage doing things. Hey, cool. We get to see the people we like in the movies. And they're not in movies. They're just like us.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think I would like put a little bit of nuance on my comment and say like, there's pageantry, and then there's pageantry just done poorly and lazily.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And you can totally have like, I'm not even saying I don't think the actors should present the awards. I just think it could be done a lot more in a lot more of a streamlined fashion. Like, I mean, every human being who has to like go to an actual awards ceremony in real life is just like, kill me, please just kill me. Like no one is like, oh yeah, awesome, this is awesome, I love this is so entertaining. It sucks when you have to be there in person. Why would you try to replicate that for a televised event when you have perfect control over it and you can cut out all the bad parts?
Yeah I agree. I don't necessarily like. I think the cool thing about them being live is it's one of the few non-sports event TV moments that exist anymore, which is cool. Like, everyone finds out who won what at the same time is a cool thing to do. Unlike the BAFTAs are pre-recorded and then come out late, like 2 hours after the event happens. And like, if you're on Twitter, like, you see people posting their awards before the show even airs, which is a little strange. So, I mean, I think there are solutions here. I just don't think this is the one. And I definitely don't think devaluing two of the most important categories in your list of 24 is the way to achieve what they want to achieve. And I just don't think, like, I don't understand. 3 hours is not like this magical number that's just going to make people come back. it's not going to do it. And by editing out, like, okay, so you're going to edit out them walking to the podium to accept the award. You're probably going to cut off their speech early if you want to. You're just going to clip around that. What are you going to cut off? 4 minutes? Maybe. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And instead, you've drawn a clear demarcation line that shows which categories you, the Academy, cares more about and which you don't. And yes, those lines always existed. Everybody knows that Best Picture, that Best Actor, Best Actress, and then the supporting ones are the most important awards, quote unquote. But it was like the unwritten thing, right? Like, the Academy didn't acknowledge it as the truth. And I feel like that's what this is doing.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of felt before like the Academy is trying to educate the world about what film is. Yeah. And now it's more like they're just catering to what they know people want. Desperate for what people want. Yeah.
And I know this isn't intentional. They didn't do this on purpose, but it just so happens that 2 of the 4 awards that they've shuffled off to this pre-recorded nonsense are editing and makeup, which just so happen to be the 2 awards that women were always primarily awarded in. Editing has always, like, women have always been, like, there's been, sex-based disparity in Hollywood for a very, very long time, and we still have a long way to go. But I feel like even when it was like way worse back in the day, women were editors, and women were successful editors, and women were awarded rewards for being editors in this thing. And makeup is the same way. And it's just like, it's just not a good look that the first time you do this, it's just, these are the 2 that were mostly awarded to women. And again, I don't think they did it on purpose. I don't think that was consciously part of their decision-making process, but it just looks bad. It just looks bad.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying.
All right, so that is the Oscars. I'm still going to watch it, but I wouldn't blame anyone out there for not watching it. I'm pretty unexcited. They're not even going to have a host this year. It's going to be a mess. This podcast is going to be a mess.
Yeah, I might revoke what I said about not watching it just because I'm like, might just tune in briefly to see if it's as bad as I'm imagining that it will be.
Does this fall under your hate watching New Year's resolution, Matt? I don't want you to fail.
No, you know what? Yeah, I can't do that. Maybe if you tell me that there's some particular moment that's funny, because see, watching it because it's funny is different from hate watching. I make that distinction. Yeah.
All right. Want to do one more quick thing before we go. One more big news item. Basically, I want you to just drool for me for a while, because over the past few weeks, there's been a little movie that has been in the news a lot. Why don't you tell me what's going on, Matt?
Well, there's this film called Dune. It's being made after a science fiction book of the same name you may have heard of, and it's my favorite thing in the world. And so the director's going to be, for those of you who are not as obsessed with me, the director is Denis Villeneuve, who is a genius, and he's made a lot of my favorite movies recently. I think I love all the movies he's made, even though I probably need to rewatch that first one that I always forget exists. And basically right now, it seems like their strategy is they're saying, look, nobody's going to see Dune. We already know that. So what we're going to do is we're going to stack the cast so absurdly that everyone will have to go see it. Like they'll just have to. So we've got Timothée Chalamet, who I don't actually know that well, but apparently everyone says he's genius.
He's great.
He's gonna be the protagonist, Paul. Rebecca Ferguson, again, is someone I'm not super familiar with, but I've seen her in a few things. She's gonna be Lady Jessica. That sounds perfect to me. Like she just has the look, she has the attitude. I think she can pull it off. Stellan Skarsgård, ultimate like villain actor, just like sleazy, disgusting, evil like character actor, is going to be the Baron Harkonnen, which is the perfect thing that has ever happened in the world. Oscar Isaac has been tapped for Duke Leto, which I saw someone complaining that he's too young. He's like, okay, fine. He's like maybe 5 years too young or something.
He's perfect.
He looks perfect. Zendaya apparently for Chani.
It's perfect.
Which is perfect, because like what's funny is I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't know about that, and then I was like, wait a minute. Like Chani's character is that she's like snarky and sarcastic, and that's like Zendaya does that perfectly.
Yep.
And now we have Javier Bardem. I think maybe confirmed or maybe still in talks to play Stilgar.
Yeah.
And Jason Momoa apparently in talks to play Duncan Idaho.
Yeah, don't forget about Dave Bautista. He's playing Raban.
Playing Raban, who's actually a very minor character. I actually hope that he's a more important character if it's going to be Dave Bautista. But okay, I'm incredibly excited about all of the stuff I just said. I feel bad for people who don't care about Dune, because I basically just said a whole bunch of actor and character names, and that's not super exciting. But like, my God, like this is going to be. I don't like to get overhyped about things, because the world has let me down so many times filmically. But damn, I'm having a hard time not being excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard not to. I completely agree. Like, Villeneuve is writing it. He's brilliant. I still think Blade Runner 2049 was like both you and I's, if not favorite, but very close to favorite movie of not 2 years ago now. Oh my God. Time is going by too fast. It was brilliant. It took something that I didn't think would be possible to be good, a sequel to Blade Runner, and pulled it off. And that's kind of the situation we're here is, how are you going to do Dune right? Like, I only read the book recently, but I had seen the David Lynch version, and it's not good. It's not a good movie. It is difficult to do Dune correctly. And with this writer, director, and this cast, I don't know, man. I think they can do it.
And isn't it going to be a multi-part? Is it going to be more than one movie?
I believe they said it's going to be 2 movies. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of rumors surrounding this movie that nothing's set in stone yet, because I don't think this is coming out till 2020. This is not a 2019 movie.
Okay.
Obviously, they haven't filmed it yet because they're still doing casting announcements. So I think they're very close to starting filming. But yeah, I don't.
I mean, normally I am the last person who would say to like stretch a movie out to a book out to more movies. but there's so many wonderful scenes and things that you have to cut out of Dune to fit it into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
That I feel like you just leave the heart of the movie on the you don't convey it.
Yeah, you leave it in the cutting room floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, and I hope I'm very hopeful, and I hope Villeneuve understands the book, because we've seen a lot of conversations about Dune as a white savior narrative, and those make me mad. I don't want to get into all that because we're already running late, but
yeah.
I think Denis Villeneuve is a smart guy, and he loves Dune, and I think he's going to understand what Herbert was trying to do with this book, and not make it just the thing that people think it is, which is like, yeah, this white guy is going to save us all. Because no, he's not. He's actually going to kill all of you because it's actually terrible.
Yeah, right. He's not a savior.
Yeah,
the opposite. Anyway, excited about that.
Yeah, it's exciting times. We will continue talking about Dune as it moves into production. I'm sure we're probably going to start seeing like the first stills coming out of production or whatever within the next few months, and I will excitedly share those with you. It's been really fun every time I see a piece of news break to send it to you, knowing that your reaction is just going to be like, oh, holy shit.
Yes, it always is. So
I'm looking forward to that continuing for the next year and a half as we prep for this movie to come out. But yeah, I am very excited. It's very encouraging. At least we know it will have a good writer, a good director, and a great cast. So what more can you ask for? I mean, it still could end up a disaster, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it will not end up a disaster. I'm going to make the bold pronouncement that it won't.
All right, there we go. You heard it here first. Dune, great.
Yes.
All right, guys, that is all we had for you this week. If you have any opinions on the Wachowskis, on Jupiter Ascending, on Dune, or on the Oscars, or anything else, just anything, you just want to pick our brains about something, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia. Also, you can follow Matt and I's private Twitter accounts where I whine about Battle Angel Alita because I didn't like it. That's at ScottDaily85, and Matt's is at Mordinaflail.
Yep, and that's where I just retweet funny things that I see.
Yes.
If you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found. And you can find all the other shoes. You can find the shoes, the rocket shoes, the gravity shoes, over at doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Go over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help support the cost of us putting on these shows and help making new, exciting content. We've got a couple of shows that Matt and I are like privately like tinkering with in the wings that we'll get to bring out in the future, and we can only do that with your guys' support. So thank you for everyone who does support us, and we really, really appreciate it. Yeah, we got big plans, so yeah, it really helps to have that support. Yep. Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here. You know, I saw a new review appear on our thing early. I didn't have time to like actually read the review, but I saw like the number of reviews went up, and I was like, "Oh, new review!" And then when I checked it the next day, it was gone. So I don't know what happened. Apple system, like the thing about podcasting is you're chained to Apple system. And their review system is awful, but necessary. So we really appreciate when you guys take the time to do that, because it really honestly does help people find us. The more reviews you have, the more Apple's algorithm shows our show, and the more people will take it seriously when they see, oh, look, this show's got 300 5-star reviews. That must mean it's excellent. Yeah, and it makes us feel happy too. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. All right, guys, we will see you next week, where I think we're going to do another episode, another Doof Warrior episode supported by our patron. I don't remember which one is next on tap, but that'll be the one we do. So all right, look forward to it. We'll see you all next week. And you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.